Hey guys, and thank you for coming to AuthorChat. Today we have the amazing author of the Black Witch Chronicles, Laurie Forest. This is the bind up of her two novellas that are set before the first book of the Black Witch in the Chronicles, and this is called The Rebel Mages, and this is a bind up of Wand Facet and Light Mage, and this is about, I always forget that girl's name.
Tesla.
Yes, this is about Tesla's parents. So,
Eleanor's parents.
Eleanor's parents. Okay, I thought it was Eleanor.
Ellerin. That's okay.
Ellerine, right?
However you want to say it.
No idea how many times I have mispronounced people's names. It is horrible. It's so hard.
Okay.
But you can't have easy names. Easy names are boring.
That's right.
But so if you want to know about what happened to lead up to the Black Witch, this is definitely a book that you want to get your hands on. It's amazing. I do not read novellas all that often. These two blew me completely away. They were amazing. All right, so without further ado, here is Laurie Forest. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm going to pretend it's just you and me talking because, I've never done a YouTube thing. So,
You're going to be fine. All right, so for those who are watching, if you have a question, you can submit it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, pretty much anywhere. You can comment it to this video here on YouTube. Post it, tag us, and I will find it. I will hunt down your questions. So, of course, the first one that we always start with is, who are you? And tell us a little bit about your books.
Well, I'm Laurie, and my first book came out a few years ago, The Black Witch, which is a young adult dark fantasy. And did you want a little bit about what the book's about? Or
Of course.
So it's about a young woman who's being raised in a very closed magical society, very strict closed magical society. And her grandmother, the Black Witch, was the greatest battle mage her people had ever known. And my concept behind the book kind of came from the idea that in fantasy, most fantasies, there's this dark lord, like Saruman in Lord of the Rings or Voldemort in Harry Potter. And I had this question in my mind, and this story in my mind of what if the Dark Lord had a granddaughter? And what if she grew up in society that all she ever knew were the views of the Dark Lord and the people that followed him or her? In this case, it's a woman, the Black Witch. So we start the story at that point. And unlike her grandmother, Ellerin is thought to have no power. And in The Black Witch, her world is kind of shaken up when she has the chance to attend a university that doesn't just have her people in it, has people from all over the realm. And she quickly finds out that a lot of what she's been told is not true. And also that the world is a pretty dangerous place for the granddaughter of the Black Witch. And then there's the sequel, The Iron Flower. And I guess I won't say too much more in case people haven't read The Black Witch. I don't want to give away spoilers. And The Rebel Mages is actually a prequel to those two books. So if people want to start with that book, they can, or it can be read after The Black Witch or in any order, really. So it's been called a novella, but it's actually a full-size book, just so people know. It's over 600 pages. So this is actually a book, even though it's said that it has two novellas in it. So I can't exactly write short, so.
Which I thank you for. This is definitely still one of my all-time favorite series, and I cannot wait for the third book to come out. And then finding out, of course, that there's going to be two more books, I'm so happy.
Yeah, we just broke the next book up because I don't think it's been formally announced yet, but it was approaching 900 pages. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first two books, The Black Witch and The Iron Flower, were really written as one book, but no one will publish 1,200 pages from a new author. You have to be somebody like Sarah J. Maas or Stephen King,
right?
That type of cost outlay for your book. So we split the book. And I think we did a pretty good job doing that. My editor really did a good job with that. But the same thing with these books, we had to split it. And I think we know where to split it.
I would have never known. Without you telling me, I would have never known that The Black Witch and The Iron Flower had started out as one book.
They're one book, yep.
I would have never known. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, that just gives a testament to how well you can write, you know?
Thank you. I think it's my editor, actually. I kept writing and writing and wanted to add, keep chapters in the first volume. And she finally wrote in her editing notes, and cut, we need to stop. So she was right, as she always is. But
That would have been a very, very large title. Oh my goodness.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, we were talking about this before, and you know, before your first book came out, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it and stuff about when, you know, the Twitter fires were happening for a whole bunch of different books all at the same time. And luckily yours didn't get pulled. I'm so excited that, you know, we got to read it as is. There were no edits to it and stuff like that. How did you deal with the fallout of all of that happening?
Well, I was lucky with my book in that we actually did have a lot of edits, but they happened before the book came out. We had about 9 sensitivity edits for the Black Witch, done by professional authors and editors from all different cultural backgrounds. And I will say that we had the chance to make the book so much better because of that feedback. So that was good. Now, as far as the controversy goes, it was based really on one review. A popular blogger had, she just did not like the book. She got an advance copy and she absolutely hated it. And she posted a terrible review, which is absolutely, her right to write anything she wants about a book, which is, as is anybody's right. I think the problem is then that people were encouraged to 1-star the book before it came out. So about 700 people 1-starred the book on Goodreads, and started a bit of a campaign against it based on this bad review, not having seen for themselves what the book was about. And if you go to Goodreads, I think the reviews are dated. You can see that almost all the bad reviews came in before the book actually came out. So yeah, it was upsetting, certainly, because I personally disagreed with her take on the book. But again, I think that's she read it and she had the right to say whatever she wanted about it, for sure. After the book finally came out and people had a chance to read it, the Goodreads rating and the ratings on every site just skyrocketed to 4- and 5-star reviews. And to date, we're pretty much at 4 stars on Goodreads. And every site is over 4 stars. And I've looked at it, and percentage-wise, about over 95% of the people that actually read the books give them positive reviews and feel that this is a very firmly anti-prejudice, pro-diversity series. The vast majority of the negative reviews that the book has are from people who have not read the book. And the vast majority of people who have posted, critical articles or authors who have spoken out against the book say they have not read it. So what makes me feel good is the fact that the overwhelming majority of the people that have actually read it really like the series and know what I'm trying to do with the series. So anyway.
I liked it. I like your explanation for, how you described everything, because that really, I think is an eye opener about these people that aren't actually taking the time to actually read the book, and they're just taking the word of somebody else. A few years ago, I actually changed our motto for the site of, read what you love and love what you read, because you're not going to like every book out there. True. But you shouldn't write a review for a book that you didn't actually read.
Yeah, and I think, to me, that's the problem. The problem isn't somebody reading one of my books and posting a negative review. I think there's absolutely no issue with that. It's just getting large groups of people to 1-star a book and go after it when you haven't read it. I think is a problem, and that's happened a lot.
It has.
Yeah.
Oh no. Somebody decided to call me on my phone. It's like, no, go away. Whew. Goodness. That thing just blew up. I forgot to turn on silent. All right. So the next question is, did you always want to be a writer?
I never imagined I could be a writer, ever in a million years. Ever. I had never really read fantasy. When my kids, about 10 years ago, when my kids were preteens, they started reading a lot of fantasy, Harry Potter. They kept trying to get me to read it. I finally gave in. I really loved it. I really loved especially how J.K. Rowling talked about serious issues and also made it really entertaining at the same time. And I just love fantasy in general. I had never read it, and I just loved that world of the authors using the limits of their imagination. And I started to read basically everything my kids handed to me. And I started to get this idea for story, inspired by those books, and also some Prejudice that was kind of going on in the news and around me in my state of Vermont. And I just started writing down a story, never thinking I could get published, but just, I don't know, I just was inspired to write this story. So I just started writing it. And when I read that first chapter, I was a little overwhelmed to read something I had written. And it was like magic. And I don't know, I just kept going. And over the next year, I basically wrote a very messy, very flawed version of The Black Witch and the Iron Flower. I just couldn't stop writing. I just loved it so much. It was totally like magic. I mean, I would pull my car over in snowstorms because I got ideas and jot them down. So, and even after I had the book done, I never imagined I could actually be an author. And my husband said to me, this is pretty good. You should try and get it published. And I was like, that is ridiculous. I could never be an author because I love to read. And I just always pictured authors as these people up here on the mountain. I never thought I could be one of them. And I joined a writing, he encouraged me to join a writing group. And I was so scared to share something I wrote with other people. They were very kind and wonderful. But anyway, one thing led to another. There was a best-selling author in my writing group, and she liked my book and sent it to her agent, and I got picked up, and one thing after another happened.
Wow.
So the moral of the story is, if anybody's out there and you have no background in writing and you've never taken a class and you think you could never be an author, but you want to write a story, I mean, you should go for it. Now I will say, I had to learn a lot of things. And I think that, people that get MFAs and, have a education in writing, don't have to learn as many things as I had to learn, and I'm still learning.
So how do you deal with writing and also, because you said that you worked as a dentist, how do you juggle the two things?
It's tricky, but I think it's good. I love my job in healthcare. What I do is I get up every morning at 5 a.m. and I write, and I try and write in the evenings too, but I don't know, even if I was writing full time, if I could just write all day long, because I feel like for me, the ideas have to percolate a little bit. So it's a tough time crunch, but it works.
Well, you do an amazing job. I keep seeing all your posts on Instagram and stuff. It's like, I'm writing, it's submitted. Yeah. I'm doing edits.
Yeah, well, I'm in that, that stressful edit time where I'm starting to show people the manuscript for the first time. And hello, Celine, if you're watching. Yeah, it's a bit of each new book, you think that it's going to get easier, but it's a little scary to put something out there. But I'm happy so far with the third book, so we'll see.
So you mentioned earlier that in the next book coming, that you are having issues with a steamy romance part. What do you think about content in YA and what should and should not be in there?
Well, personally, I've enjoyed reading both types of YA, like Sarah J. Maas. I personally think is fine. I mean, it's kind of joyful consensual sex, and I feel like that's just fine. I mean, and I've read books too that, more like Harry Potter, that don't have that. So I think I'm okay with a lot of different things. I think I would have, as a parent, I would have had more of a problem with, I don't know, non-consensual sex, but without a moral to that in condemning it, or really gratuitous violence. that would be more something that I would have an issue with. But, you know, I'm not sure. It really depends on the reader. I think parents probably know best what their own particular children can deal with. As far as my books go, I am not, you know, and again, I like reading all types of books. We've kept it pretty, I mean, it's dark, but we've kept it pretty YA friendly, I think. It is a little dark, but like Wand Fast did, it was a little tiny bit more graphic. There's a sex scene in there, but we really faded to black on that. My editor recommended that. So we really faded to black quite a bit. And then there's a steamier scene that it's in an uncut version right now in book 3, and we're probably going to have to tone that way down. I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm a little sad about it because I think it's a good scene, but
well, you know, you could always like, you know, release that in like a extra, you know, like an extra, like, you know, just something extra, you know, like on your website or something. You're like, here, you know, this is a extra uncut, you know, not filtered, read at your own risk.
yeah, people have asked me for the uncut Wand Fasted.
Like, let's see it. I want to see the uncut version of this, you know. See here. Know that we had talked before about that other book that I had read and then found out in the process of writing my review what was at the tail end of it, and I am still so flabbergasted that that got published, because in the world of YA and stuff, you know, people with all these things of, oh, this book is racist, oh, this has derogatory terms in it, but then there's like almost no peeps about the bestiality that's in the back of this YA book that's supposed to be sectioned out starting at age 14. And it just amazes me so much how people can complain about, you know, word choices and stuff like that, but they don't complain about this. They complain about your main character being, you know, a racist, but nobody's concerned about their 14-year-old is reading about this. You know, it's just, it's weird.
Well, don't forget the people complaining about my character being racist overwhelmingly are people who haven't read my book.
Haven't read the actual book, yeah.
The overwhelming number of people who have read my book understand that the story arc is such that this is a young woman being raised in a fascist society by this dark lord's family, and that she's never seen anything else or heard anything else. She has all these ideas about religion, etc. And then she gets exposed to the wider world and realizes everything she's been taught is wrong. You know, which happens a lot of times. I've gotten letters from people all over the world, from all different religions, especially people in many different religions who were raised in very strict versions of those religions. Who were told, you know, things about, you know, gay people being bad and women needed to be subservient, you know, and this goes on in all the different types of religions and the strict versions. So, you know, people have written to me saying, you know, I was taught these terrible things, and I really liked reading your book because I really related to it, because, you know, I went on this journey too, where I was exposed to people that I grew to care about who taught me that these things were wrong. And I've gotten a lot of letters like that. And I've also gotten letters from people who were on the receiving end of the Prejudice, who felt like this was an important story. You know, I mean, especially, you know, even just in our country, I think it's relevant, a book like this, because, you know, there's definitely a lot of prejudice against different people in different religions or people in different groups. And I think the book, and like I said, the vast majority of the readers understand this. One of the themes of the book, one of the big themes of the book is to look past the surface, you know, to not judge things on the surface, not judge things on the stereotypes you've been told, you know, get to know people, be very wary of being told this whole group is this way.
Right.
It's dangerous.
It is. Right. So the next question is, how long did it take you to write the first book from start to finish?
Well, the first 2 books were written in a year, but they were written as a novice author, and the story, I think, was good. Everybody saw that, but the writing was horrible. I don't have this writing background. I have a reading background, but I have a science and math background, and I had a very steep learning curve ahead of me. So my editor is a saint.
So so you wrote the book in a year, and then how long did it take to go through like all the edits and stuff? before it was ready to actually be published?
Well, you know, the book was rejected many times, and rightfully so, because the writing was so bad. And I had to go to writing groups, and I had to learn how to write, and I had to rewrite it, well over 20 times. And then eventually my agent helped me rewrite it, and then a big publishing house almost took it. But the head editor of YA there edited the whole thing with, well, not half of it actually, because it was the two books as one. And they ended up not taking it, but I learned a lot from her. I think I learned so much from this editor. And so I went back and I kept rewriting. And then 2 years later, we resubmitted it. And I think at that point, you know, the writing was still, I had a lot to learn, but it was good enough that it got picked up by my imprint, Ink Yard, which back then was Harlequin Teen. And I'm so lucky because my imprint is the best imprint in the world. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which of your books were easier or harder to write?
The hardest one was Light Mage, by far. That was my most personal book. It also takes on some really heavy themes of sexism and how strict religions kind of set young women up for abuse. And also when you've been taught to fear people of different cultures and religions, all of a sudden getting thrown in with those, you know, the people and finding out everything's been a lie. I think I went after those themes even a lot harder in Light Mage. And it was a very hard book to write. And the sensitivity reads initially were difficult ones, and I learned a lot from them, but I basically had to rewrite the whole story because the sensitivity reader that read it, who's from the Middle East, and she had a unique perspective, having been an immigrant, and just she had a very unique perspective about prejudice from that end. And you know, she was very kind in her feedback, but I did cry over it because she was so right, and I had a lot of my heart in that book. But I went and I saw she was right. I rewrote the whole thing. We had other edits down the road, but I really gave my all to that book. I feel like it's the best thing I've written so far.
Why did you decide to go back and write two books that happened previously before The Black Witch?
Well, when I got a contract for The Black Witch and the Iron Flower, part of the contract was that I write 2 novellas, but they were supposed to be like 80 pages each. But then I started writing the different stories, and in the end, they were like 300 pages each. And I just couldn't, I can't write small. So, yeah, the book's like 647 pages. The two novellas. I mean, they're basically 2 books.
Yeah, it's like 269 pages.
Yeah.
Whew.
It made, I'm telling you, my editor should be sainted. She's amazing and brilliant and also very patient because, you know, she was going to get 80 pages to edit. And
I would have actually been perfectly fine if that would have been longer, because I loved learning more about, you know, the events leading up to the Black Witch and learning about her parents and, you know, what they went through. Because I mean, if you read the Black Witch first, then you know who these people are, and that just makes you love them even more. And then you fall in love with these characters, and then I only have, you know, just shy of 300 pages with them. You know, I want more. I want more. Do you think you'll ever go back and write more from the stuff set in the past?
I'm tempted. I think that if I had time, I wish I did, the novella I'd write right now would be Tristan's love story. That I'd like to write. But yeah, Vale and Tesla I'd like to revisit. And I get that question a lot about those books. But the publishing house actually kind of guided the choice of topic for those novellas. The head of the editorial for my imprint wanted a prequel that showed the original Black Witch in action on the battlefield. And she was like, you can structure the novella any way you want, but just can we get a glimpse of that original Black Witch in action? So that was an interesting challenge. It was terrifying because, you know, I didn't expect to be writing more books. And then when we wrote the second one, we just tossed around some different ideas, but then we're like, what about Sage? What is her story? And It's interesting because writing the novella changed Sage's story, and changed the Iron Flower. In the original version of the story, Sage was very much a victim at the end. She was a broken girl. And I don't know, the character just decided she didn't want to be a victim. And it really changed over the course of writing that book. And I think that was interesting. And then she became a totally different character, and I had to rewrite all her scenes in the Iron Flower afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that it turned out that way and she didn't stay a victim.
Right. So after you get done with the one that you're finishing right now for book 3, and you get done with book 4 and 5, what do you think that your plans will be after the series is completed?
I don't know. I have a lot of side books, but I'm so immersed in this right now. I'm really immersed in this epic story right now. It's hard to even think along those lines because it's such a big part of my day-to-day life right now is writing this story.
Has it gotten easier as you go through the series to write the next book, or do you have to do you have like a book Bible or a story Bible for your world at all, or?
Well, no, that I do have. I have because my editor, the world building was so messed up and messy in the unedited version. She was like, Laura, you got to go figure out the religions and the politics and the governments and everything of all these and the magic systems because you're all over the map. It was a mess. I mean, it contradicted itself, and so fantasy is tricky. You got to go through and really get all those details straight. And I had some weird things I think. Well, it's obvious to people that read it here in Vermont that I've based the Black Witch world on Vermont's climate and everything and topography. And I actually had foliage season happening 4 separate times when I first wrote the book. I mean, it was 4 times there was a change of the leaf color, and my editor caught it. And she was like, Laura, you've got to go through and figure out your seasons. So anyway, there was a lot of work to be done.
Well, that is definitely something for a 10th anniversary. I would love to, see the story Bible or something get published as a 10th anniversary thing to, get in depth with all the different religions and the magic systems and stuff. That would be so cool.
Yeah, I have a document with all those things.
That would be so interesting to go through. So I know I think Sarah J. Maas is actually coming out with the world of the Throne of Glass series and stuff. That's going to be definitely something very, very interesting to read through to kind of get more in depth.
I'm on the last book in that series right now. It's really good.
Oh, the Throne of Glass?
Yeah, that's a good series.
It is. It is. I was kind of upset the way that she finished the last book because
Tell me.
I'm not, no spoilers. I mean, It's finished, but it's still left somewhat open. She could come back and write more stories to it. I'm the one that I like the epilogues, and I want the epilogues to go, 10, 20 years out. I want to go way out into the future to see what's going on with these characters. I don't want it 2 weeks from now. Let's go way out. If it's the final, I want to go, let's see some grandchildren. I want to see some grandbabies or something. I want to go way out there, like Harry Potter did 19 years in the future. Let's go there,
All right. You're giving me some ideas here. Now I know what I better do for the epilogue here.
Let's go there. Because so many books have, they didn't add one, or they add one and then, what was it? The Girl of Fire and Thorns, that entire series. I love that series. They still remind me of the little wishknit creatures that were from the what is it, the early 90s and stuff, because they have the jewels in their bellies and stuff. But that was the first thing when I started. I thought I was going to hate that series, and I ended up falling in love with it.
Yeah, people keep telling me to read that. I have a copy.
It's a good series. It's a good series. But the epilogue in that, I think it was set a year past, and you don't really, not a lot of stuff can happen in a year. I mean, a lot of stuff can happen, but I would have preferred, if it went out 10 years. Go further. Go further. You need to go further.
All right.
Gotta go out there. And so it's I really like stories, especially series and stuff that, this is the end. I'm not coming back to the series. I want everything at least, most of the way wrapped up. And I want to know what's going on with these people, out that far, so I know what's going on, because these are my people now, I got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I gotta know.
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought that was a little brilliant when J.K. Rowling did that in Harry Potter. I thought that was cool.
I loved it. I remember when that book came out and people had been commenting about, oh, she's going to kill off Harry so nobody can come back, 50, 60 years later and write more stories about him because he's dead. You can't resurrect him. And I was so scared that that was going to happen. So I ran into the bookstore and just like grabbed the book and just like flipped to the end and just like, oh my God, 19 years later. Yes. Made sure everybody was still alive.
Yeah, it was pretty brilliant. I liked it.
Oh my goodness. See, why did you decide to write fantasy?
Well, because my kids kept handing it to me, and I had never read it before, and I loved it. I have never loved a genre like I loved this genre, and I just started reading YA fantasy, adult fantasy. Yeah, it was my kids. They were my gateway. Mhm.
Kids, your gateway to fantasy.
Gateway. They're to blame for all this.
Oh my goodness. Who is your favorite character out of your series?
It changes from chapter to chapter sometimes. I think right now, Tristan. Tristan right now, yeah. And I have these new Death Fae characters that I really like. They're not bad guys. They're kind of like these primordial fae who are aligned with the parts of nature that none of us like.
Oh, okay.
The animals that are kind of scary, the processes that are kind of scary, like decay, sickness.
Oh,
They're
wow.
not bad guys.
So,
They're like that. They're essential, because my idea of the fae are like connected, very, very connected to nature in my story.
mhm.
And the Death Fae are very interesting new characters. I hope my editor likes it. We'll see.
You should read The Queen of the Blood. It's the Queens of Renthia series from Sarah Beth Durst.
All right, I'll write that one down.
Because her world is basically it's ruled by a queen, and the queen has to um, basically kind of send signals to the spirits, which is basically I would say they're based on the Fae. To me, it feels like the Fae,
Right.
and because if she doesn't, then all the spirit creatures will basically kill and ravage everybody that's living out in the woods.
Okay.
Child came by. But it's an amazing series. She actually just published a spinoff that deals with a different part of their world. It's so good. Let's see. What is one book that you think that everybody should read, or what is a book that you would recommend to everybody other than your own book?
Wow, that's a really hard question. Does it fantasy or anything?
Anything. It can be anything under the sun.
I would say well, I was part of I was a part of a 2017 debut group, and I got to read this incredible book called A Girl Like That by Tanaz Bathina, and I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, I certainly apologize for that. But it's called A Girl Like That, and it takes place in a high school in Saudi Arabia, and I thought it was better than To Kill a Mockingbird, which I know a lot of people have some valid issues with. But I mean, like, what I mean by that is I think that book is good enough that it should be read in every high school. So A Girl Like That by Tanaz Bathina, it has a beautiful cover, and it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life.
Wow. Okay, so
It deals with some similar themes loosely that I'm trying to deal with. Only, I mean, it's brilliant. It's a lot about prejudice, based on religion. It's a lot about sexism based on strict interpretations of religion, which of course happens, in all major religions, of the strict interpretations of them. So that book, I would encourage everybody to read that book.
sounds really good.
And it's just an incredible read as well. And it's got a very beautiful love story in it.
Right. So let's talk about titles and book covers.
Okay.
How much input did you get to do for the titles and book covers for your books?
Well, I know that the artists looked at my Pinterest, which I have so much fun on Pinterest. So they definitely pulled ideas from there. So I think I had an influence in that way. They actually had a cover that they were going to go with for the Black Witch that was not liked by a major book retailer, and in retrospect, they were right. Although I did like that cover too, but the new cover is just beyond anything I could have imagined. I love the Black Witch cover. I think the book covers that they've come up with for my books are some of the best I've ever seen. I'm not just saying that because they're my books, but I feel like the artists working with Inkyard are just, it's amazing what they're coming up with. Like Julie Kagawa's series, Shadow of the Fox, Soul of the Sword. Those covers are some of the best covers I've ever seen. There's a new one about to come out from Inkyard called Crown of Coral and Pearl.
Oh my God, I've seen that one.
Seen that cover?
Yes, that is so pretty.
That is one of the best covers I've ever seen for YA, period. Anyway, if you have a chance to just pull up Inkyard Press's website and just look through some of the covers they're coming up with, it's a treat. You're not going to believe what their artists are doing over there. Oh gosh. All right, my books. The Iron Flower, I had huge input in that. I had pictured, but what they did with it was they're all their own artists. But I certainly picked kind of like an Oxford-inspired look to the university. I think Oxford University looks incredibly magical, and I know I'm not alone in that. I mean, the discovery of witches, is based in Oxford, and I think it's definitely inspires lots of people in fantasy. And then the Iron Flower itself is huge in the story. So I was stunned when I first saw that cover, them having the university coming out of the flower. They would send me things like, what exactly does the flower look like? And they'd send me a bunch of flowers, like, how are you envisioning it? So that was fun. And then I wish I could show you the next cover. It's better than any one they've done, and that's saying something.
Didn't the third book have a name change? I saw somebody.
It did. We were going to call it the Shadow Dryad, but the Dryads really kick into the story heavily because we're cutting the book. This book really is about the dark forces. It's more about the Shadow Wand. So this was a great choice. I feel like the Inkyard always comes up with amazing titles. So
this one, the new one's going to be the Shadow Wand then? Yeah,
what they do is they ask me every time, like, give us some ideas. And what I've done is just thrown out a ton of words, a ton of ideas. They kind of look at it and see what they think. And they've always picked the perfect things.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see, especially what the artists come up with. And I can't wait to show you the cover of the next one.
When is that going to be released?
We're hoping for early next year.
Oh, I mean the cover.
Oh, I bet it's going to be soon because we were close to done. They just have the artists doing some redrawing of an image.
Oh, okay. An image. I like that. I want to keep it under wraps. An image. I
want to tell you so much. I want to tell you.
It's like tell me after it's over, and we're off the air.
I'm not gonna believe this cover. This cover. Oh my God.
It's like mum's the word. Don't tell nobody.
I almost fainted when I saw it. I couldn't believe it.
I think with all like these covers, I keep mentioning to publishers when we get a chance to go to like the different events and stuff that I don't know why they don't make posters. Because you have like Walmart and stuff, and they have like the posters in there you could buy for like $8.
Oh, you mean for fans to have?
Yeah, I want posters.
Oh, that's a great idea.
One of the coolest posters that I had gotten, I picked up. One was from the first time I had ever got the chance to go to BEA, and the other one was I think at ALA last year. But it's this gigantic poster. One is for the Shadowhunter series. Right. It has like all the covers on it, and it's freaking massive. And the other one is from the Selection series, and they're so pretty. And I'm like, I don't understand why they don't make more of these and sell them. Yeah, same with like I'm glad that your books didn't end up having cover changes because it irritates the crap out of me. But anytime
I love that when just like a new cover comes out, and I love the foreign covers. Although it's funny, almost everybody that because we've got a bunch of translations of the Black Witch. Almost everybody has gone with that kind of iconic at this point feather cover.
Right. You have gotten so lucky because there's so many books out where, halfway through the series, they decide to do a cover change. And then, of course, or they re-release the first book with a different cover.
Right.
And I'm like, they should do new dust jackets and sell them for like $5 a pop. They would make a killing for all us people that I want my books to match.
Yeah, but I think the idea of posters at these book conventions, I mean, they would sell like hotcakes. I mean,
they would, especially like what is it? The Shatter Me series. The first book came out and then it had the cover change when it went to paperback. But here I am still stuck with the original cover with the girl on it. And I'm like, I'm just stuck with this. And they finally just re-released the first book in hardback with the new cover. And I'm like, oh, yes. All my books can match now.
You know, one of the best new covers is
horrible.
Leigh Bardugo's Ninth House. That cover with the snakes.
Right.
Beautiful.
It's so pretty. It's like this. I had to work with this because this irritates me that this only came out in paperback. But I will take the paperback for the Rebel Mages and I will survive with it because it is in print.
I never expected it was never supposed to be in print. They were just going to do it was it was just going to be ebooks because they were going to be 80-page novellas.
Okay.
And then they sold so well that they decided to put it in book form, and I couldn't believe it, and I was so happy because the books turned out to be some of my favorite of the whole series. So, and then when they showed me the cover they came up with, I actually cried when they showed it to me because it was so beautiful. Aww. I didn't expect it to be a book.
I love it. Like somebody needs to take the time to sit down and like make this sword and this wand.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I actually had to rewrite the runic blade to match the cover because it worked so well, the colors, but it actually was a different color in the originally. And what I had to do is because the cover worked so well visually, I had to go back and actually change the magic of the blade a little bit so that it kind of the runes kind of appear on it in the story. And it's funny because I thought I was the only one that did this, and I talked to some other authors that it happens occasionally where people tweak their stories a little bit to match a fabulous cover. So
hey, that's nice. I give you credit. You went back and did that because I've read a whole bunch of books that they don't do that. There was one a while back ago where like the girl on the cover had one colored hair, but the girl in the actual book was like a completely different color. I'm like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, I've seen that.
It gets crazy sometimes. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, it's tricky maybe because so many edits happen after covers are designed. But
right.
Yeah.
It is. You have been so lucky in the world of books. But
I really have.
I love these books. I constantly tell people to read them anytime they're looking for any type of witchy story or something. Read The Black Witch. It's amazing. They're fantastic. Fantastic. I think I pretty much own your book in every single format I can possibly find.
That's awesome.
Well, that is all of my questions for you today. Thank you so much for coming on. Let me close this out really quick, and then I will be right back to talk to you. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on. If you go to the website, there is a giveaway for print copies of the Rebel Mages. Definitely something that if you haven't read, you definitely need to. Sadly, this will be our last YouTube live video. From now on, they will be live on our Instagram channel at Crossroad Review. You can find us over there, and then I will be uploading them to YouTube because as of August 1st, the Google Hangouts for the live videos will be going away, and I have no clue how to do this without that easy non-encoding stuff. I don't know how to do all that stuff. So I hope you guys will follow us over there. And at least the nice thing about Instagram is that as long as you follow us, anytime we start a live video, you will automatically get notified for it. So I know a lot of times people have stated that, oh, I didn't know you were on there, and they only get to watch a tape. So I hope that it works out. If you have a favorite author or a favorite book that you want that author to come on the show, please tweet out to them with our link for crossreviews.com and ask them to join AuthorChat. It's completely free. It doesn't cost anything, and we work at all hours to work around the author schedule. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week or I guess a weekend. It's Friday. A great weekend, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.